All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to get into U.S. visa interviews.
Yeah, those could be pretty intimidating, can't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if you've never done one before. What are they even looking for? What are those magic words and phrases that will guarantee your visa?
Exactly. And you know what? Even if you aren't planning to go to the US anytime soon,
Right.
this deep dive could still be super valuable.
Absolutely.
You might have friends or family applying, or maybe you're just curious, about how this whole system works.
And, it can even help you with your English
Oh, that's a good point.
because it's all about being able to communicate your ideas clearly and concisely,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's like a real life English test.
Yeah. So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
First things first. There are a lot of different types of visas for the U.S., right?
Oh, yeah, a whole bunch. There's like a visa for every reason imaginable, studying, working, investing, even getting married.
Wow, it's a whole visa universe out there.
It is.
But for this deep dive, let's focus on the one that's probably most relevant to most people, the B2, the tourist visa.
Makes sense. That's the one you need for a typical trip. Visiting friends and family, seeing the sights, maybe doing some shopping.
Okay, so let's say you're sitting there in front of the visa officer, heart pounding,
Yeah.
and they ask you that classic question.
Oh, yeah, here it comes.
What is the purpose of your trip to the United States? What goes through your mind?
Well, first thing is don't panic.
Right.
The visa officers, they're just looking for clear, concise, and believable answers. They want to know why you're going to the U.S. and what you're going to do there.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm going on vacation.
No. You got to be specific. Instead of saying, I'm going to California,
Right.
you want to say something like, I'm going to visit my cousin in Los Angeles. We're planning to spend a week exploring Hollywood and Disneyland. Be specific.
So like giving them a sneak peek into your itinerary.
Exactly. And that level of detail, it helps build credibility and it shows that you've really thought about your trip.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I guess that leads into the next big question. How long do you plan to stay in the United States? What's the key to answering that one?
Consistency. Your answer has to match what you put on your application form. Any little difference, even a small one, could raise red flags.
I bet. They probably have a sixth sense for inconsistencies.
They might. So just stick to the facts, be straightforward, and make sure your story, matches what's on that application.
Right, because they're looking for reasons to approve your visa.
They are.
So make it easy for them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the when of your trip.
Right.
But now comes the big one, the million-dollar question, the one that can make or break your application. Tell me about the ties you have to your home country. Why is this one so important, and what exactly are these ties everyone keeps talking about?
This is where things get really interesting and where understanding, the nuances of language can really help you out. The ties question is all about showing that you have good reasons to go back home after your trip.
Ah, so it's about proving you're not going to overstay your visa.
Exactly. They want to know that you're not going to just disappear, into the American landscape.
Right.
Think of it like this. The visa officer needs to be reassured that there's something pulling you back home, something that makes it certain you'll return.
Okay, I'm starting to get, it's like a tug of war.
Yeah.
They want to see what's pulling you back. And those ties, those are your anchors.
I like that. A tug of war, that's a great way to put it. And, those anchors can come in many forms. It could be owning a house, having a steady job, family responsibilities, or even investments in your home country.
Right, so you're showing them that you have a life back home, a future there.
Precisely. It's about painting this picture of your life, your responsibilities, your future plans, everything that would make it crazy to just leave permanently.
This reminds me of a friend of mine who went for a visa interview a while back, and he was so nervous that he brought this huge file of documents, like a briefcase overflowing with papers.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot of people do that. And, while you don't want to overwhelm the visa officer,
Right.
it's always good to be prepared with supporting documents, just in case. Even if they don't ask for something specifically, having that extra proof can really strengthen your case.
So it's like a better safe than sorry kind of thing?
Exactly. Think of it like building a fortress of evidence.
I love that.
Every document, every little detail adds another layer of, believability to your story.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together, but before we get into the specifics of what kind of documents are most helpful, let's take a quick break and we'll come back to break down those all-important ties in more detail. Okay, so we're back and ready to dig into those ties that can make or break a visa application. It sounds like we need to be strategic about what we show to prove we're really connected to our home countries.
Exactly. It's not about just dumping a pile of papers on the visa officer's desk.
Right.
You need to pick the right documents and put them together to tell a convincing story.
Okay, so what are some examples of documents that can really make a difference?
Well, let's start with the big ones: property ownership and finances. If you own a house or land in your home country, bring proof like a deed or property tax statement that's super valuable.
Oh, yeah, that shows you're not going to just walk away from something like that.
Right. It shows you have a real stake in your country. And it's not just real estate. Any financial asset that shows your commitment can help: bank statements, investment portfolios, even proof of retirement savings.
So you're basically showing that your financial future is tied to your home country.
Exactly. You're not planning to just pick up and move your whole financial life to the US. And speaking of finances, employment is another big factor. A letter from your employer confirming your job, your salary, how long you've been working there, that can really make a difference.
Right, because it shows you have a job to come back to, a reason to return.
Exactly. It wouldn't make sense to risk that for a short trip abroad. Now, beyond the financial stuff, family ties are usually seen as one of the strongest signs that you'll go back home.
I can see why. It's hard to imagine anything stronger than wanting to be with your loved ones.
Absolutely. So if you have a spouse, children, or elderly parents back home, make sure to highlight those relationships. You could even bring photos or letters from them talking about how much they depend on you.
Ah, that's a nice touch. It shows you're not just an individual, you're part of a family unit.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a traditional family structure. Even if you're young and don't own property or have kids, yet you can still show your ties in other ways.
Oh, like what?
Think about your community involvement. Are you part of any clubs, organizations, volunteer groups? Do you do any cultural activities or belong to a religious community? These all show that you're connected to your home country.
So it's about showing the things you do, the connections you have that make up your life back home.
Exactly. It's not just where you live, it's how you live. And even if you're a student, you can use your studies as a tie. Bring your transcripts, enrollment verification letters of recommendation from your professors.
So you're showing that you have a future in your home country, whether it's through your career, your family, your community, or your education.
Exactly. You're building a whole picture, a convincing narrative. Think of it like telling a story, and your documents are the chapters.
I love that. It's like you're weaving together all this evidence to show you're not just some random traveler. You have a real and meaningful life back home.
Exactly. And, this whole process of getting ready for a visa interview, it can actually be great for practicing your English.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. You're presenting yourself to a native English speaker in a formal situation. You need to be able to express yourself clearly and concisely using the right vocabulary for travel, family work, even finances.
Wow. So it's like an advanced English class with a chance of getting a visa as a bonus?
Right. And there's also the cultural side of things. Understanding how Americans communicate can really help you succeed.
Like knowing how to address the visa officer the right way, making eye contact, being confident, but not too much.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about finding that balance between being assertive and respectful, giving information, but also being engaging.
This is amazing. I had no idea. There's so much to it. It's not just about filling out a form. It's about language, culture,
Yeah.
even psychology.
You got it. You're showing your best self while also following the rules of a pretty complicated system.
My mind is blown. We've only just scratched the surface of this whole thing.
Mm.
But before we go too deep, let's take a moment and then come back for our final thoughts on how to really nail that visa interview and leave a great impression. Okay, we're back and ready for the final part of our deep dive into U.S. visa interviews. We've talked about the questions, the ties to your home country, but now let's get to the interview itself, that moment when you're face-to-face with the visa officer. What are the keys to making a good impression and getting that visa?
Well, I think the most important thing is confidence. You've done your homework, prepared your documents, practiced your answers. Now you got to show them that you're serious, credible, and ready.
Okay, confidence is key. But how do you do that without seeming like arrogant or over-rehearsed?
It's all about being genuine. Your confidence should come from knowing your situation, your goals, your ties to your home country. Don't try to memorize a script or pretend to be someone you're not. Just be yourself, be honest, and let your real confidence come through.
So it's that inner confidence that really matters.
Exactly. And, confidence goes hand in hand with clarity. When you can express your thoughts clearly and directly, it shows that you know what you're talking about, and it makes you seem more believable.
Right. If you're stumbling over your words or searching for the right vocabulary, it can hurt your chances, even if you have a good case.
Exactly. So practice your answers, especially for those important questions we discussed earlier. That'll help you feel more confident and sound more clear during the interview.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got confidence and clarity. What else can we do to make a good impression?
Remember we talked about the cultural aspects of communication? Things like making eye contact, sitting up straight, smiling. Those can really make a difference in how you're perceived.
Oh yeah, those little things can really send a message of respect, engagement, and even trustworthiness.
Exactly. And speaking of positive impressions, enthusiasm is huge. When you're genuinely excited about your trip, your plans, even your ties to your home country, it shows.
So that spark, that genuine excitement can really make you stand out.
Absolutely. And you can even show that enthusiasm in how you use language. Don't be afraid to use descriptive words, tell a personal story, maybe even make a joke if it's appropriate.
So it's not just about giving robotic answers, but letting your personality come through.
Exactly. It's about connecting with the visa officer as a person while still being professional and respectful.
Okay, starting to get the whole picture. But one last question. If you were the visa officer, what would you look for in an applicant? What would convince you that they really plan to go back home?
That's a good one. For me, it would come down to coherence and consistency. I'd want to see an applicant whose story matches their application, whose documents back up their claims, and whose answers show that they really understand their situation and their ties to their home country.
Like those puzzle pieces we talked about earlier, everything fitting together to make a clear and convincing picture.
Exactly. And beyond the facts, I'd also be paying attention to those subtle cues, body language, tone of voice, overall demeanor. It's about getting that feeling that you're hearing the truth.
Wow, this has been an amazing journey into the world of U.S. visa interviews. We started feeling lost and intimidated, but now I feel like we have the tools and knowledge to approach this with confidence.
I'm glad to hear that. And, even if you're not planning to apply for a U.S. visa anytime soon, these skills, clear communication, presenting yourself confidently, cultural awareness, those are useful in so many areas of life.
Absolutely.
Right.
So whether you're getting ready for a job interview, giving a presentation, or even just meeting new people, remember what we've learned today. Be confident, be clear, be yourself, and let your personality shine through.
Well said. And maybe someday we'll all be swapping stories about our successful visa interviews and our adventures in the U.S.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those passport pages turning.